meet my bride. Let's go for a ride in my newfangled automobile. Just where we will go, nobody knows, but it's sure a great way to feel. Behind the wheel of the speed meter steel, it's my newfangled automobile.
Hello and welcome to Vintage Car History. I'm Wild Bill. And one of my favorite movies of all time is the 1962 classic, The Music Man. Robert Preston, Shirley Jones, Buddy Hackett, Ronnie Howard. It's got some greats. And the main character, played by Robert Preston, is a very intelligent con man with incredible charisma, selling musical instruments and bands across the country. However, he also has no clue about what music is, which is a problem if music is what you sell. Of course, the movie, itself based on a Broadway musical, is fictional. But in the vintage era of the automobile, there was a real Professor Howard Hill. A man of intelligence, great charisma, and absolutely no clue about his actual profession. This con man left chaos in his wake across 2 continents. He is responsible for producing what is, in my accurate opinion, the worst car ever produced by human society. Allow me to introduce to you the infamous Edward Joel Pennington. Born on probation in 1858 in Indiana, United States of America, as a young man he was restless, not particularly inclined towards school, and liked to tinker. Now it is true that many automotive geniuses began to tinker. However, Pennington was not by any stretch a natural engineer. If he did manage to make something that kinda did something, he would promote this wondrous new spectacle he had created. Backed by his charm, wit, and natural speaking talents, he could woo the ladies and amaze the men, and then convince them to buy from him. By the 1880s, he had managed to actually patent a few things regarding engine design. A rather crude ignition system that sometimes worked, a cylinder head design that didn't work at all, and a few scattered other patents pertaining to vehicles and engines. He managed to charm quite a few folks into fronting him the money to build his design of a small engine and fit it into a bicycle. It took him a bit, but by 1893, he had made his version of a motorcycle. Now, let's give credit where credit is due. Prior to 1893, a bicycle with a motor on it was referred to in a couple of ways. Motorized bicycle or powered bicycle were the most common. But, at least in print, he was the first to refer to such a vehicle using the term motorcycle. So, he did do something right. His motorcycle, however, wasn't right at all. The engine was a noisy chunk of metal that required the prayers of saints to actually run. Now, he did continue to promote his incredible device of the future, but after a year or so of not producing something that actually worked, the money ran out. He had pretty much gotten all the cash he was going to get out of Indiana, so he sniffed around for a ripe market of people to exploit, and his nose led him to England. Eddie's shenanigans in the USA pretty much ended his work in the fledgling U.S. automotive industry. As charismatic as he was, he made no one any money, and word got around. However, across the pond, there was a man who didn't know about him, and Mr. Pennington had his target for one of the biggest con jobs in automotive history, and his target was Harry Lawson. Harry Lawson was, in 1895, striving to corner the British automotive market. Lawson himself was a decent, intuitive engineer, but also realized that the manufacture of cars was much different than the bicycles he built his career on. So he was looking around not only for patents, but someone that could help organize the overall manufacture of his brands. Up strolls Edward Joel Pennington. Oh, did he turn on the charm and absolutely mesmerize Harry Lawson. By the time he was done with him, Harry believed that Edward Pennington was the American automobile inventor, had a fistful of patents to prove it, and also had himself established factories and procedures for vehicle manufacture This is exactly what Harry wanted. Of course, none of that was actually true, but that didn't deter Eddie from first instructing Harry to build his motorcycles. And they did. And they didn't work. But that didn't matter. Eddie Pennington didn't expect these motorcycles to actually work, but the process of building them, the Pennington process, was the key and would revolutionize car manufacture. And Harry gulped it down, hook, line, and sinker. And then, of course, the Red Flag Act was rescinded. Harry had his pile of patents and the man who could make all of his cars. Life was good for Harry. That's where things start to seriously go goofy. Pennington was no Henry Ford, and he had no particular method of manufacture beyond gathering a bunch of parts and people and tools and just, hey, figure it out. But that's not how he promoted his incredible methods for manufacture, as well as his own groundbreaking and cutting-edge designs. Now, Harry Lawson owned several makes of cars at this time, one of them being British Daimler. Most of the makes of cars he had were pretty much just small garages, so had no problem submitting to Pennington's demands of manufacture. That's all they were capable of anyway. Not so with Daimler. This was the first time that someone in Harry's employ told him to pack sand. There was no way they would build cars the way Pennington demanded. Unfortunately for Harry, he did not listen to them. He absolutely believed Pennington was his man. However, the only car company he owned that was making money was Daimler. But Pennington had the ultimate idea. Sell Daimler, since they won't listen to reason, and use the money to create the Pennington. A true car of the ages. You will make a fortune. And so, using the incredible manufacturing processes cleverly designed by Mr. Pennington and the even more equally brilliant car design provided by the same aforementioned Esquire, Harry Lawson used his money to produce this absolute offense to human intelligence. Why are the tires so big? Because there is no suspension, except what the tires cushion for you. It is steered from the rear with bicycle-type handlebars. Problem is that the linkage is so loose that the front wheel won't stay in one direction no matter what you do. No carburetor. You drip gasoline into the head from a valve and hope it works. It does have a spark plug, but remember that non-working cylinder head I mentioned? If you design a head where the gas just drips in and have the gas drip directly on the spark plug, how the heck can it make spark? Oh, did I mention that this car, as proclaimed by Mr. Pennington, could seat 9 people? Well, you just pick where they actually sit. Oh, notice, no cooling system for the engine. So in the strange event that you actually got it running, it had no choice but to overheat. Lawson invested pretty much everything he had into his automotive empire, both to promote automobilism in England and, of course, to build the magnificent cars that Britons would be driving. However, with even a few more models being developed, none of them worked. The British public as a whole began to become skeptical of cars in general due to the obvious failure of everything that emerged from the mind of Edward Pennington. And the great plan of Harry Lawson began to crumble. Yes, over the next 5 years, Eddie and Harry sold exactly no cars at all. Due to his crude manufacturing skills and worse engineering ones, he pretty much bankrupted Harry before fleeing England back to the U.S. He got his money and ran. And when he returned to the U.S., he just went back to doing whatever he could find, whatever scheme he could conjure up. He financially ruined many people, did serious damage to the early car industry in England, and yet was never accused of a crime. Edward Joel Pennington wasn't the music man. He wasn't the car man. He was, like many politicians today, just a con man. out for other people's money and got away with it. Thanks for watching Vincent's Car History. We'll see you next week. Peace.